Hey again! If you don't know who I am, my name is Josh Download, and though I've woken up in this strange place, all my games seem to be here. And according to that note on the door that's written in blood, I've got to play a Super Famicom survival horror game, Clock Tower. Now this game was never released outside of Japan, but considering my Japanese is nowhere near good enough to play it in Nihongo, I've got a reproduction cartridge, box and manual, made by the very long dead Time Warp Games. I know there's a more popular reproduction cartridge and complete package, but this is the one I happen to get, for reasons I can't remember. The box is a completely new design which amounts to more of a collage of assets from variations of Clock Tower. The back of the box makes the game look inviting, like it should. Remember going to Toys R Us and seeing all the Game Boy boxes on the shelves, or the N64 boxes or whatever? It's half the reason we want the boxes, right? Well, dumb collectors like me. Let's take a look at the manual that was shipped with the box. It's printed well and in full color. Honestly, it looks great. It's even got tasteful artsy pages in it, like a good metal album, with some quotes or world building. Keen eyes, or rabid collectors, might also spot this picture here, which is actually the front cover of the NTSC Clock Tower 3 on PS2, which was made by Capcom. Mildly interesting, the PAL Clock Tower 3 doesn't have the girl on the cover. The manual has a nice introduction and details the main characters. It gives a bit more detail than you'd typically find in the game, along with a handy controller layout with controls and some gameplay tips or explanations. Even more fascinating, the manual also details every item in the game and lists their exact locations. Since Time Warp was an American company, I've got the game sitting in my NTSC Mini Super Nintendo. For the Aussie collectors who are watching wondering how I'm playing it, I've got my NTSC consoles hooked up to an American power board and then attached to a step-down transformer which is taking the voltage from 240 volts to 120, the standard for the US and Canada. This means that all my NTSC consoles are using their original adapters, bar my American N64, which is using an aftermarket adapter which I got from the American Amazon but got it sent here. Since my collection has a variety of NTSC and PAL games, it's been absolutely necessary to get NTSC consoles to be able to play them. Alright, enough stalling. God, let's do this shit. Starting out, there's a bit of a story to introduce some key things. 1. A group of little women are adopted by Mr. Burrows. 2. Jennifer has some questions concerning their new arrangement. 3. Miss Mary is a bit vague, but seems friendly enough. 4. It happened in September. A couple of other interesting notes I've noticed. The shot of the Burrows Manor is awfully similar to the shot from Splatterhouse 2 of the West Mansion. Coincidentally again, Jennifer is the name of Rick Taylor's love from Splatterhouse. Should probably stop talking about Splatterhouse because I won't stop and I'm afraid that ghost is gonna kill me. The little women reach the manor and rather than flying on a cloud, light as paper as it were, they are seated in the drawing room as Miss Mary wanders away to get Mr. Burrows. And the realization hits. This is a point-and-click survival horror game. Now the more clever viewers, or the ones who are as old if not a bit older than me, might be asking the TV they're using to watch this video, hold on Josh, the Super Nintendo has a mouse. Surely this seems like a match made in heaven. Or hell in this case, considering it's a horror game. Now excuse me for a moment, I'm going to go make a coffee. In which I would say, well done, it sure does. However, the Super Nintendo mouse is not compatible with Clock Tower. Extremely unfortunate, I know. One can only imagine why, considering Mario Paint came out 3 years earlier than Clock Tower. Maybe Human Entertainment just couldn't make it work at the time. And hurry along with your coffee, I'm not going to wait for you. However, if the dirtiness of emulation is something that is appealing to you, perish the thought, there's a patch that adds mouse support to Clock Tower on romhacking.net. I'll link it in the description. Curiously, it does more than add mouse support and adds a bunch of new content too. If you happen to own a Retron 5 or something similar, you can play this hack on the TV as well. Also, coincidentally, Clock Tower was released 30 years ago, as of the 14th of September. Coincidental because that ghost wants me to play it right now. Oh, and I was just joking about that emulation thing. I'm not your mum, you can do what you like. The drawing room serves as a quick tutorial on the controls, which involves using the D-pad to move the cursor around and clicking on things. Human Entertainment had some foresight to make selecting objects or important things obvious by the cursor changing from a mouse to a square that surrounds said object. Upon clicking the point of interest, Jennifer will make her way to that point. Slowly, usually, but that's one of the charms of the game. Jennifer walks, and potentially to most, walks too slowly to be enjoyable. Other forms of movement include pressing either to the left or right of Jennifer for her to walk in that direction. If you double click, she will run in that direction. You can also hold the L or R buttons to have her run in that direction instead. However, this will drain a bit of Jennifer's health. Jennifer's health is represented by the small portrait of her face in the bottom left corner of the screen. Her portrait changes slightly in that she'll close her eyes or look terrified, and the background will change different colours. Blue being full health, yellow being slightly hurt, orange being quite hurt, and red being close to death. Seems Miss Mary is taking a really long time to get Mr. Burrows. How about we talk to our sisters? Talking to your sisters Anne, Lute, and Laura reveals that they're slightly uneasy about the situation. However, if this was real life and these little women were actually adopted by Mr. Burrows, their unease wouldn't exactly be justified. But it is strange that someone would adopt 4 young women as opposed to 4 children. But depending on the year this is set in, Mr. Burrows might be more of a trustee than adopting them specifically to be a father. General caution about being in a new place with people they don't know, sure, but I think they'd be more excited if this was real. Which it isn't. This is a horror video game. After a few minutes of wandering around and talking to your sisters, Jennifer takes the initiative to go see what's taking Miss Mary so long. And here's where the game truly begins. The majority of the game is navigating Jennifer around the manor, finding clues, items, and working out solutions to puzzles. I know what you're thinking. This is a horror game, right? Where's all the horror? Holy fuck! Jesus Christ! Run away, Jennifer! Oh, right. Hold the LRR buttons. Shit, damn controls! Just run, Jennifer! Ah, god damn it, he got me! Fuck! Oh, right. The manual said in a panic event to rapidly press the B button to get Jennifer out of danger. Damn it! Now she's lost some health and that psychopathic killer with the giant shears is still after me. I've got to find somewhere to hide, or run far enough away that he stops chasing me. Holy shit, he's just so unrelenting! And if I don't hide fast enough or get cornered, it's a dead end. Yeah, if you're unsure how this is a horror game, or how this game could be scary, the first time you have to run from Bobby will make you a believer. What makes this game so terrifying comes down to 2 things. The lack of control you have over Jennifer, and the fact that a lot of the events or items happen or appear randomly. This includes when Bobby decides to try and kill you. There are scripted events involving him, like witnessing one of your sisters die at the beginning. Which one it is up to the choices you make near the start of the game. In fact, that is the whole basis of the game. Like every good point and click, your path forward can be different every time you play. You may spot a different solution to a puzzle or an event you haven't seen before just by messing around or playing through the game multiple times. And on top of the multiple paths through the game, random elements and item locations, there are also 8 possible endings, plus one very difficult to achieve secret ending. This puts me in a difficult position for this review. The last thing I want to do is spoil anything important about this game, and everything I've shown so far is just the first 10 minutes. It's definitely the kind of game that you want to go in with as little knowledge as possible. Discovering all the puzzles and their solutions, the events and endings, is the majority of the fun of playing this unique horror gem. But I will explain some more around the main mechanics, controls, and make sure to show plenty of clips out of context. It's very important to explore the manor as much as possible, and to understand where you could possibly hide if Bobby decides to show his face. And Shears. as well as find items to potentially help you progress or piece together what the hell is going on. Nothing is ever quite as it seems, and just when you think you've got a handle on how the game works or what to do next, you'll walk into a room that'll make you say, "What the hell is this?" Or, "What the hell am I supposed to do with this?" Then remember, "Oh, that's right, I can use the
Warning,
on the
unable to comply.
I wonder what's in there." If all of this pointing and clicking has you worried this is Shadowgate, I have great news. This game is nowhere near as long or cryptic. Even the first time through, this game can be beaten in about 3 to 5 hours. A rough estimate. It's been a long time since I played this for the first time. It also depends on how fast you pick up on the puzzle's solutions and the clues along the way. Oh, and I'll be getting to Shadowgate at some point. Don't worry about that. All in all, the gameplay complements the survival horror aspects of the game. Not Resident Evil or Silent Hill survival horror where there's combat, but White Day or the Coma survival horror where there's no real combat but you have health and the idea is to avoid encounters. One pillar of gameplay is puzzle solving. If the game is designed with clever puzzles for the player to solve, it's a more rewarding experience. Bonus points for having multiple ways to solve a puzzle, and weaving those puzzles into the narrative or other gameplay elements. You know what else complements the horror aspects? The graphics. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. Human Entertainment didn't go for a manga look for the characters, they went for a more realistic look, which means Jennifer is a bit faceless walking around, but her portrait, which is a little manga-esque, is beautifully detailed, with an array of expressions and animations. When Jennifer witnesses an event, her portrait goes through a short animation showing her mental state at what she's seeing. Because of this, she is directly reacting to the things the player is also reacting to, which creates a sense of immersion as you feel you're on the same team as Jennifer, empathizing with her plight and trying your best to get her out alive. She's not the only one with some minor animations. When characters talk, Jennifer's portrait changes to a portrait of them and their lips moving. It's not in sync at all with the dialogue in any language. They just sort of open their mouths and then close them again, but still, it's a nice touch and didn't need to be done, yet it was. There are almost no aspects of the game where the player has to squint, lean towards the TV and audibly say, "What's that supposed to be?" With some minor exceptions, which one could argue are supposed to be a bit ambiguous. As an example, let's take a look at this room. Here, you can clearly tell you're in a games room of sorts. There are 2 lounges, a coffee table, a fireplace, a TV, a tall boy, a creepy painting on the wall, and a box on top of the tall boy, as well as a light switch on the wall, which can be pressed to light up the room, which is also a mechanic of the game. When it's dark, the rooms are bathed in blues, purples, and blacks, a titular staple of implying nighttime or dark areas since even the first days of cinema, even a staple of paintings from varying eras of history. And when the lights are switched on, the colour palette shifts to yellows, oranges, and more vibrant colours for the objects. This makes it a joy to run your cursor around the screen, looking at specific objects, wondering what will be hiding something you need. And it's not just Jennifer or the environments which are good looking. Bobby and the other creatures are just as fantastically drawn. Bobby's animations are brilliant and sometimes funny in that "fuck you for killing me again" kind of way. His walk is distinctive, his interactions with Jennifer are obvious, and his specific events are outstanding. I'd love to discuss the graphics more, but there's such a danger of showing too much, so I'll leave it there. It's one of the best Super Nintendo games I've ever seen, and it is such a joy to see it on my CRT TV, considering that's what it was designed for. Oh, and you may have noticed about my setup, the mini hi-fi system. And yeah, it's connected to the TV setup. And holy crap. The music is absolutely outstanding. This isn't an action game, so the music almost never drives or pushes you forward. In fact, a lot of the time it's pure silence musically. But man, when the music comes in for one reason or another, like Jennifer walks into a room she probably shouldn't be in, or a spook event happens, or Bobby appears, this is where the music drives, ratcheting up the tension and making you act fast and potentially irrationally, as if trying to force you to make mistakes and suffer an encounter. The instruments chosen for the tracks are amazing. I can hear the timpanis, harpsichord, cellos, and double basses, just rendered as best as the Super Nintendo could do. Video game soundtracks are tough to write. Complementing what's happening on screen, or predicting the way that the player is feeling, and then pushing that feeling to extremes, isn't easy. Even more difficult for horror, which are some of my favourite soundtracks when done right, and this soundtrack is definitely done right. It's not too much either. Like I said, a lot of the time you're walking around in silence, with only the reverberations of Jennifer's shoes on the hard floors. Which neatly leads to the sound design, one of the best aspects of the game, and one I feel makes you forget that this is a Super Nintendo game. It's perfect. Simply put, it's perfect. Tell Jennifer to walk here, footsteps almost sound real. Flick on a light switch. Again, it's as if you turned on the light switch yourself. Crawl up some loose rocks, you can hear the rocks clanging each other and crunching under Jennifer's weight. I could go on and on and on about how everything sounds. It's truly one of the things I love about video games. The attention Human Entertainment paid to make the game sound real is admirable, and I cannot applaud them enough for it. Even though I know this game so well, I get sucked in by the sound design alone. I find myself leaning forward, intent, focused on the game, consumed by the environment and forgetting the world around me. If this is the second entry in that non-existent video game magazine from the late 90s, the music and sound design would get a perfect score. I couldn't ask Human Entertainment for better. They absolutely nailed it. Now, I'm sure some of the more knowledgeable people watching this video have been yelling at the TV for the last, 18 minutes or so. Josh, you big dickhead. Clock Tower has a new port on modern consoles with an official English translation. Why the shitballs are you reviewing this one? And though impolite, that is a good question. But before we get there, let's discuss some of the other ports that this game has. There was a port of Clock Tower on Windows 95, which I didn't know about before this review. If you have a Windows 95 machine or the ability to play Windows 95 games, you can find the ISO of the game here. I'd boot it up, but unfortunately my Windows 2000 PC is having issues and I can't play it yet. I also typically don't like downloading games to play them. I prefer to own them physically. As a small aside, I absolutely love the Internet Archive. I cannot encourage people to use it more. Go there now, look for something. You might find it. Another port of the original was on quite an obscure handheld called the WonderSwan by Bandai. Despite the apparent amount of units sold, this handheld has largely fallen off the history line of video game memory, mainly known by cultured collectors and video game enthusiasts. Unfortunately, I don't own a WonderSwan, or the Clock Tower port on it, but I
It sure is a lovely autumn day here in picturesque New England. The air is crisp, the breeze is refreshing, and the leaves are starting to change color. I'm sure glad I'm here enjoying lunch outside and not locked in some dungeon-like office halfway across the world. It sure is peaceful. It's nice to have lunch outside on days like this. But it's also a little boring. Good thing I brought some handheld excitement with me today. It's getting a bit chilly though. Let's go inside. Ah, there we go. Now what's this, you might be asking? This little gizmo is a WonderSwan. The WonderSwan was a Japan-only handheld released by Bandai and developed by Gunpei Yokoi, the creator of the Game Boy and the Virtual Boy, at his company Koto Laboratories. The first model here, released on March 4th, 1999 for only 4,800 yen, which was roughly just $42 at the time. Super affordable. It features an 8-shade monochrome display, 4 more than the Game Boy, and has a whopping 40-hour battery life on a single AA battery. To save a production price and keep a small form factor, no WonderSwan units have headphone jacks, but there are adapters available out there for that. It's a nifty little gizmo, and I like it a lot. This was followed up by a color model released December 9th, 2000, with a slightly bigger screen, capable of showing 4,096 colors, displaying 224 at once. This was followed by the Swan Crystal, which is the color model I have, on July 12th, 2002, and it's just the WonderSwan color with a much better screen. Collectively, the WonderSwan line sold about 3.5 million units and was quietly discontinued in 2003. All WonderSwan units have 10 face buttons, and games can be played in both landscape and portrait mode. Games came on cartridges like this, just a little bigger than GBA carts, and there were around 200 WonderSwan and WonderSwan Color games in the library. Let's talk about the spookiest one, Clock Tower. Clock Tower came out on WonderSwan in 1999, and it's an interesting oddity. The game is played entirely in landscape mode. The graphics in this version take a little bit of a hit due to being in 8-shade monochrome and being on a display of 224 by 144 versus the SNES's 256 by 224. But you aren't ever really at a loss of what an item or location is supposed to be. The dithering graphics blend a little better on the original WonderSwan, but the clearer display helps a bit with easier readability, and what system is best to play on really comes down to player preference. Due to the smaller screen real estate and lack of color, Jennifer's health is not displayed as the portrait at the bottom of the screen like in all other versions, but instead is indicated by a meter of 3 dots built into the screen. Not many games make use of these optional meters, but it's a clever way to work around the platform's limitations. At 3 dots, Jennifer is feeling fine, and when it's down to 1 blinking dot, she's at her most distressed. Like all other versions, stopping to rest refills her health. When Jennifer enters a panic event, the 3 dots blink, letting you know it's time to mash that panic button to get away. Another difference from other versions of the game is Jennifer's walking and running speed. It might not be too noticeable to seasoned players of the game, but Jennifer is definitely slower. It's no deal breaker, but it might take some getting used to for some players. This is actually a port of the PlayStation re-release, so it has some minor improvements and differences from the Super Nintendo original. Some items are in different places, you can fast travel up and down the stairs, and there are a couple added scares and events. The music and sound also take a bit of a hit in this port. It's not grating or anything, but the music isn't exactly scary either. Controls are very similar to the other releases of Clock Tower. You move the cursor around with the bottom directional buttons to select points of interest and move Jennifer around. Double tapping makes her run, and pressing the action button makes her stop. Items are selected and cycled through by pressing the Y4 and Y2 buttons, and you use them the same way you would in any other version, by moving them over points of interest to interact. The in-game text is all in Japanese and scrolls over the screen when it pops up, instead of below the action like on Super Nintendo or PlayStation. It scrolls a little slowly, but I don't find it too annoying. but it is another thing that might make some players feel like the game is a little sluggish. Overall, this is a really solid way to play a great game on the go. If you are a weirdo like me who owns a WonderSwan in this age, I really recommend picking up Clock Tower for the thing. It's a great addition to the library, but I wouldn't recommend getting a WonderSwan just for it, at least for casual fans. Oof. It's feeling a little stuffy in here again. Let's go back outside.
Well, it sure is a lovely day here in New England. Sunny, cool, crisp day in Massachusetts. Glad I'm not here in, somewhere like Australia. Well, I better write this letter to Josh, get that done up. Waste not, want not.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to see that your day is nice and sunny, perfectly normal, not infested with stupid ghosts. Recently, as recent as the 14th of September to coincide with the original release of Clock Tower on the Super Famicom, the incredible people at Project C.U.T.S have released a fan port of Clock Tower for the Super Famicom on the Game Boy Advance. I actually went out and bought a GBA flash card just so I could play it in my Game Boy player. So let's check it out. Right out of the gate, the sound quality has taken a noticeable hit. I normally wouldn't bring up sound and music so early, but it was the first thing that struck me, so I mentioned it. Apparently, this is really common with SNES ports on the GBA. I've got to say, I've never noticed such deficiencies with GBA games I've played religiously, like all the Pocket Men, Advance Wars 2, or Nintendo Classic Zelda. The sound and music in this port definitely has the telltale signs of being bit crushed to save space, and a lot of noise is generated during the intro with the clock tower chimes at the start. It's unfortunate, but generally speaking, that's where my criticisms end. Everything about the game is retained from the Super Famicom version. The endings, the tension, the slow pace, the events, everything is here in the palm of your hand. However, due to the limited resolution of the GBA compared to the Super Nintendo, Jennifer's portrait isn't visible at all times. To get around this, and to be able to show Jennifer's health without showing the portrait, a shifting color bar is displayed on the bottom of the screen during regular gameplay. This is a really good idea, and doesn't distract from the game. Whenever Jennifer talks or reacts and you'd see her portrait change, the bottom of the screen lifts up, and there's our girl. It's elegant, and I love it. But that does bring up a problem of using items. Well, the developer made a fix for that too. Holding down the select button brings up the item menu from the top, like Jennifer's portrait below. You do have to use one hand to hold down the button, and then the other to use the D-pad to select an item. But due to the game's slow pace, this was never an issue. With the limited buttons, the layout has been changed. Not every button on the Super Nintendo controller was used, so things were condensed to the buttons available. The panic button has been swapped to the A button. It's only a slightly wonky problem in one specific section of the game which I can't tell you about. Otherwise it works perfectly, since you can't select anything during those events. That's the only major change, and I already mentioned the select for the items. L and R still make Jennifer run in those directions and start pauses the game. Outside of that, the game functions just as the Super Famicom original does. And though I captured footage on my Game Boy player, I have to mention, playing this on a GBA SP feels incredible, and will probably be one I randomly go back to. The mouse movement is smooth, selecting things is easy, and there's no slowdown that I noticed. The console runs it brilliantly. One thing I did notice, the game is very dark on a GBA SP. It seems this was anticipated or came up during testing because there's a brightness switch in the options menu. Personally, I enjoyed how dark it got, but it can be frustrating, so I'm glad that's there. But it got me curious, so I grabbed my Game Boy Micro to see how it looked on that, and holy hell, it looks amazing. If you have a Game Boy Micro or were looking to get one, this is the definitive way to play Clock Tower Advance. For another added bonus, the game can be played with the original script from the Super Famicom version, or the widely available fan translation. And you can erase the saved data if you so choose, to start again. If you grab the ROM from archive.org, you'll also get some digital manuals. It outlines more than my manual from the reproduction copy, but mislabels Bobby as Scissorman, which is extremely common. Though it never made sense to me, he's named in the game. It looks gorgeous. Like, holy crap, I just love how this game looks. And Clock Tower Advance retains all the amazing detail from the original. Booting it up on the Game Boy Micro made me play through the whole thing for the best ending because it just looks and runs incredibly. The GBA port is absolutely fantastic. The Bit Crush sound is a shortcut that a lot of developers take when they port a game, and it's a shame that more care wasn't taken with the audio. But I understand that a fan did this in their own time, and there was a deadline. I'm also guessing that a lot of space was taken up by the graphics, and that was the trade-off. Regardless, this is the best way to play Clock Tower on the go if you don't have access to a WonderSwan, like my boy Mike, and that version of the game. Well, there's one last version to mention. The official English release of the Super Famicom game and the PS1 Clock Tower The First Fear, Clock Tower Rewind. Whoa, hold on. Clock Tower Rewind features a new, very lightly animated manga-style intro with an absolutely awful song. And since it sucks so bad and I don't want to get copyright shitballs for such a sack of crap, I'm going to replace the track with one my band, Mamiya Mansion, wrote for the 30th anniversary of Clock Tower. Much better. Unfortunately, the horrendousness continues in the main menu. So I've got it muted and playing an instrumental version of the song my band made called Nightmares Begin. Clock Tower Rewind is the only official English release of Clock Tower and features additions from Clock Tower The First Fear on PlayStation. There's a lot to go over, so let's start at the beginning of the game. You get a choice of the Rewind game, which has the missing features from The First Fear, as well as quality of life improvements. So let's jump back in, from the beginning. Right out of the gate, you'll notice that the translation is decently different. Throughout the entire game, it's a little less serious, I guess. In fact, it changes Jennifer's personality a bit as well. Some lines make her seem a bit more blasé about things. Still, this is the official version, so let's wave off the translation and focus on the general differences. Generally speaking, the game is identical to the SNES reproduction I've been playing up until now. However, the differences start to come into view, and not all of them are good. Or necessary, in my opinion. First off, there are screen tearing issues fairly often, especially when you're being chased by Bobby or running from room to room. Honestly, it doesn't hamper the experience, really, but it's present. The slowdown is extremely evident. I think this may be present in The First Fear on PlayStation, but I've never played it. It's bad. I can't show you the worst of it, but like Castlevania on N64 bad.
Oh my god.
It's really distracting and it takes away from the game.
There are extra scenes and interactions, but I cannot show those because of spoilers, so trust me, there's some crazy stuff that can happen. Some items have been moved in comparison to the Super Famicom version. Not a lot though, and as I understand it, these changes are from the first Fear. To regain health, you merely have to stand still and press the equivalent of the triangle button on your modern controller. Jennifer will instantly sit down and regain health much faster. This is one of the changes that is unnecessary in my opinion. It speeds up the game, yeah, sure, great. But it kills the mood of it. This is not the kind of game that needs to be played at speed. The tension of standing still and hoping to regain health as fast as possible because you just endured something horrible or outran Bobby is gone. It's a shame, but I know a lot of people will agree with this change, complaining that the original move's too slow. Ultimately, I think that defeats some of the purpose of playing this old game. During gameplay, a gaudy, disgusting, and unnecessarily invasive overlay will appear on the screen when you unlock an extra available to view in the main menu of Clock Tower Rewind. I hate this. A lot. What the hell was the art department away forward thinking? Hey, we got this really intense or story-heavy scene that's driven your attention to extreme levels. Let's take the player immediately out of the game by covering the entire fucking screen with a message stating they unlocked something. Great idea. What you unlock is awesome, but such a screen-filling message is completely unnecessary, dumb, and a great way to ruin immersion. The only consolation is that it only appears once, but your immersion for that part is still ruined. And though it's only the first time you see something, the subsequent times you see it are already less impactful. There's no way to turn it off. It almost ruins the whole experience. I can't imagine how someone who has never played the game before would feel about this. The trophies or achievements you unlock are bad enough, but those can be turned off on the consoles that have them. There's no reason to even have the notification that the player unlocked something, let alone cover the whole damn screen. Unbelievable. From what I could see, those are the only changes that have been made, and they may only appear in the Rewind version. If you choose Original at the file menu, you may not see them. I hope, at least. Nothing has changed about the graphics, besides the screen tearing I mentioned before and the slowdown. But I feel something is lost when a game like this is played on a modern TV. That's just my personal preference. In my last video, before I was kidnapped by that damn ghost head, I recommended serious collectors getting a CRT TV. This is one of the reasons why as well. The graphics in Clock Tower look incredible when on a CRT TV. Soft and naturally blending due to how the gun shoots electrons at the screen. But in Clock Tower Rewind, it's pixelated graphics on an HD TV. It's just not the same. All sharp and prominent. It doesn't look right. I think I'll get the most discourse from this opinion. I know a lot of people genuinely disagree with me on this, but this is my video and that's my opinion. If you do disagree with me, hey, that's chill, boys. Especially if you can only get your hands on Clock Tower Rewind and not the original or the first Fear on PlayStation, let alone a CRT TV. There are also filters you can apply to the graphics during gameplay, but like other filters with modern revisions of games, they're a bit shit. Some can look good, but most of the time they're seemingly thrown in. Lastly, the sound effects and music are completely unchanged. Done. Clock Tower Rewind is the easiest way for you, right now, watching this video, to play this incredible game. It is not at all the best way to play it, but it comes with more than just the game. Clock Tower Rewind comes with animated manga entries for the prelude to the game and the first Fear. As I stated, you know when they're unlocked because they're right there, did you know? But they're still pretty awesome. More story for this sick game? Say no more. If you think I'm going to show you any of them, you're mistaken. You'll have to find them on your own. Bottom line, Clock Tower Rewind is a phoned-in port of the original games, but it is the easiest way to play them. If you can get past the unlocked extra thing overlay, awesome, because you're playing Clock Tower on modern consoles. If you can't, it's probably worth sourcing a physical copy or an ISO of the first sphere. And a translation patch for it on PS1. Or downloading the Windows 95 version from archive.org if you have a way to play that. They are the best ways to play it. And that's it. Clock Tower is an absolutely outstanding survival horror game, and I cannot recommend the Super Famicom version enough. The WonderSwan version, as my friend Mike said, is the PlayStation version, but you get it on the go, which is amazing, and the best way to play it on the go. If you've got the means to save up for a WonderSwan and Clock Tower, it's also highly recommended. The fan-made port on the Game Boy Advance is a close third, an incredible achievement by the fans. And if you have a way of playing the PlayStation game in your desired language, then that gets a recommendation too. If you prefer to play on modern consoles, or that's your only means, then Clock Tower Rewind is your only option. I just hope the mood isn't spoiled for you. Also, some good news. If you own a Switch 2, it's now compatible and can be played without issue. Which is a new way to play it on the go. Clock Tower is a truly underrated classic game from an age long gone. The series was eventually bought by Capcom, who made Clock Tower 3 on PlayStation 2. Don't worry, we'll get to that one too. The original has an absolute cult following though. Earlier this year, Project C.U.T.S, who I mentioned before, set up a fan event in celebration of Clock Tower's 30th anniversary this year. They got a bunch of fans to submit music and artwork, offering products for sale for the event, and released an album as a not-for-profit, featuring artists who contributed on YouTube, and on archive.org, including my band, Mamiya Mansion, and the song I played earlier, Nightmares Begin, along with another track, Ruptured Gears. Every time I play Clock Tower, I remember why I love it. There's still stuff I haven't found or seen, and I've not thoroughly explored every room, nor gotten every ending. The worst part about this review is I can't talk in depth about every reason of why I love it. But I hope you take Mike and my recommendations and pick this game up for yourself. Alright, that's enough out of me. I'll see you in the next review.